Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to study inference questions. This is one of the question types of the reading section of the TOEFL IBT test. Since we have started the class just recently, then we need to study each question type in detail. Now, as you know, in the reading section of the TOEFL test, we've got two passages. Each passage is something like 700 words long, and there are 10 questions per passage. We have got two passages, so 20 questions as total. How much time do they give us for 20 questions? 36 minutes. 36 minutes. And we have also discussed that these 10 types of questions are from different, these 10 questions of each passage are from different types. Now we've got 10 types of questions: factual information, negative fact, referent, vocabulary, inference questions, rhetorical purpose, sentence simplification, insert text, prose summary, and fill in a table. We have studied 4 question types so far, right? Factual information questions, negative fact questions, referent questions, and vocabulary questions. Today it's time to study one of the most important and common types of questions in the reading section of the test, which is inference questions. All right, great. Inference questions. You need to know that authors can express opinions, information in passages in 2 ways. In the first way, they mention information very directly, explicitly there. And for that piece of information, we say detail, right? And for detail, we have got factual information questions, which obviously ask what is stated, what is mentioned, what is true. We already studied this on the first day of our class. And also we do have negative fact, which tests whether you can distinguish information mentioned in the passage and information not mentioned in the passage there. But on the other hand, there are sometimes that authors express information indirectly, or we can say they just imply a piece of information in the passage. And for that, we need to have this skill, which is called making inferences there. All right. Now, what is an inference? An inference is the conclusion you draw based on the piece of information you have. Now, inference questions ask about implied information. As I told you, we've got 2 ways to express information in a passage. One is directly, which is detail, another is indirectly. Now, for the indirect information or for the implied information, we've got inference questions. To give you a simple example of implied information, if I say, for example, there was a man who was sitting in his office and then he decided to go outside. Before going outside, he looked through the window and took his umbrella with himself. And then I asked you, how was the weather like? Sorry? Maybe rainy. But did I say it was rainy? No. I just said that he took his umbrella, right? Now, from this piece of information, you could make this inference that the weather was rainy. Now, in exam, you may get a question like this. The question asks, how was the weather like? And then there's that piece of information there. You use the piece of information stated to draw a logical conclusion about the implied information there. All right? Okay, so that's the definition. You need to be able to identify each question type. For each question type, we have its own way of identifying. For example, for factual information, you have the word state, mention, true, or according to this paragraph, for example, it is stated that. For negative fact, the words not and except are written in uppercase, right? Capital letter. Referent questions, the word is highlighted for you, a pronoun, a determiner or something is highlighted. For vocabulary, a word or phrase is highlighted for you in the passage. So based on that, you can understand and identify the question type. What about for inference questions? For inference questions, you have the word infer, imply, sometimes you have suggest in the question there, all right? Look at the examples I've written on the board. The first one, what can be inferred about X from paragraph 1? If you get a question like this, then you need to know that this is an inference question. How can you do that? We have the word infer. What can be inferred? That means the question asks you about piece of information that is not stated directly, all right? There, so you need to think critically, use the information mentioned in the passage, draw a logical conclusion. We will take a look at the examples later in the book, of course. Next one, it is implied in paragraph 2 that X. So the word that indicates this is an inference question is Imply. So it is implied, which means that the author mentions something indirectly there in the passage, right? Or we may have the word suggest. For example, paragraph 3 suggests that. So those are the 3 ways we can have an inference questions in the reading section there. And I can say this is the most important step, because if you don't identify the question type, then how are you going to answer the question there? All right, because for each question you need to know its own strategies. Let's get to answering the questions. The first step in answering inference questions is to find the keywords there. All right, I told you on the first day that the passage has got a lot of information there, and you don't have time to read the whole passage. So you need to be smart. You need to understand the question fully. So the first step is to find the keywords there in the question. For example, in question number 1, what can be inferred about X from paragraph 1? Now, what are the keywords here? One is obviously paragraph 1. So we know that the question is about paragraph 1. What is another keyword? This word, whatever it is. What can be inferred about? So X, whatever topic there is. It is implied in paragraph 2 that X, so the keyword, paragraph 2, and this word. Sometimes you don't have keywords in the question, right? Like paragraph 3 suggests that. So now one paragraph is long there. Obviously, it takes time to read the whole paragraph and then draw a conclusion based on that paragraph. In that case, you need to read the answer options, right? As we discussed in the past. So you can find the keywords using the question. If there are no keywords in the question, you have to look for the keywords in the answer options there. Because based on the answer options, you can get a sense of what the question is asking you to do. All right, so that's the first step. Step number 2, you read the relevant section. Now the question is how to find the relevant section. How do we find the relevant section? Anybody? Based on the keywords. That's why we actually had the first step, right? So in the first step, we find the keywords. Then after finding the keywords, we move on to find the relevant section. We find the relevant section based on the keywords. Now look at the keywords there. In question number 1, paragraph 1. So paragraph 1, that means like the question is about that paragraph. Inside that paragraph, we need information that talks about X there. All right, so the keyword is X here. All right, sometimes the same word is in the passage, sometimes synonyms of the word are in the passage there. All right, so you find the relevant section, then you read that section very carefully there. All right, you read that section carefully, come back to answer options. There are 4 answer options as usual. 3 of them are wrong and 1 is correct. All right, so you read those 4 answer options and then eliminate the wrong answer options. As we discussed from the very first day, those 3 answer options are called distractors. They are designed to distract you, to fool you, or to make you fall for the trap there. And then select the correct one. What are the distractors? One of the common distractors for inference question is it's that the answer option seems logical, it seems very important, but it is not supported by the information mentioned in the passage. All right? Yes, it is true that the inference question asks about information that is not mentioned directly, but that does not mean that you can choose any of the answer options there. You have to choose the answer option that can be supported there. For example, we say option A is correct because of this piece of information in this paragraph. Based on this piece of information, we can draw this logical conclusion there. The second answer option is the second distractor. It uses similar language but changes information there. So same words are used, same structure is used there, but they change the information. And just because the answer option looks similar to the passage, you may fall for the trap and then choose it as a result of, I don't know, anxiety or being nervous there in the test, since you don't have that much time, right? So that's another distractor. The next one is, it is contradictory. It might be just the opposite of what is stated in the passage. And finally, it might be a detail. It might be a piece of information mentioned somewhere in the passage, but it has nothing to do with the question there, all right? It is just irrelevant to the question there, all right? Finally, we have the correct answer. When you choose the correct answer option, you need to be able to point to the piece of information that supports that answer option there, all right? So I can say it is supported. It is always supported by the passage. By the passage. All right. To recap, we can say inference questions ask about implied information. information that is not directly stated there, as we had a couple of examples earlier on. We can identify them using the words infer, imply, and suggest. The steps to answer the questions are first you find the keywords, then you read the relevant section. Finding the relevant section is based on the keywords. After that, you eliminate the wrong answer options. Wrong answer options are called distractors, and we have them there on the right side of the board. And finally, the correct answer is supported by the passage. Now, if there are any questions, you can ask. If not, we can move on to practice. All right, let's move on to practice.